labour and material shortages, which was foreseeable. Foreseeable means that both parties at the time of contracting realized that there will be labour shortages. Right? The court held that the contract was not frustrated, even though the contract took 22 months to complete at a cost of £115. It took longer to complete, right? 22 months instead of 8 months, and it really cost much more, £1.5. Okay? So the court said there was no frustration because it was something, I think this was the key, right? Which was foreseeable. The parties at the time of contracting knew that there was a contract. In fact, they should have made provisions for it, but they failed to do so. Right? The provisions will be force majeure clauses. Okay? Right. Talking about force majeure clauses, okay, I want you to follow with me the effect of this. Page 199. Can you see page 199 of the book here? Now, can you see this big word here? Force majeure clauses. Right? So I'm going to read from here. Can you see this one? 7-513. Secondly, many parties today include in their contract force majeure clauses. These are clauses which expressly provide for the occurrence of events such as war or natural disasters, euphemistically called acts of God, right? Which will normally fall within the class of events which leads to frustration. So they will foresee such things happening, right? The effect of such a clause depends very largely on its construction. If the clause is construed as a complete provision fully governing the situation which has arisen, then it will be effective to prevent frustration from arising. In fact, forget about frustration. The rules in this force majeure clause should apply. Okay? Now, there will also be no breach of contract despite its non-performance. Right? Because the force majeure clause will deal with that situation. Okay? Now, important, you might want to read the China resources against Magenta resources. Right? This is a pretty good case. I want you to read that and put it in the summary. Now, the other thing I want you to take note of is a very recent Singapore Court of Appeal decision. Okay? Can you see that? Up there, right on top here, 7-513B. The Singapore Court of Appeal in RDC Concrete against Satluko Gyo took the opportunity to set out the general principles relating to force majeure clauses. Right? A to F. 6 important points to take note. A. The key purpose of such a clause is to contractually allocate the risk of specified future events beyond the parties, between the parties. Number 2, B. Precise construction of the clause is crucial in order to determine its scope. Have we got that? Now, the intention of the parties must be given effect too. Right? C. Force majeure clauses may exclude frustration and also provide for discharge or other relief for non-frustrating events. It's much wider than frustration. Now, D. While the force majeure clause determines how outstanding obligations could be resolved upon the happening of a foreseeable event, the doctrine of frustration determines how these obligations should be treated due to an unforeseeable event. Hence, the doctrine of frustration is still very relevant to the construction of force majeure clauses. On the whole, such clauses by their very nature and function will usually meet the criteria required of the doctrine of frustration. E. While parties can exclude the doctrine of frustration in the force majeure clause, the language used to do so must be clear and unambiguous, very precise. The courts will construe such clauses strictly. And last point, a party who relies on the force majeure clause must not only bring himself within the clause so that it applies to him, but also take all reasonable steps to avoid its operations or to mitigate its results. Okay? Now, in a very recent case, Hosim Singapore Private Limited against Precise Development Private Limited 2011, the Court of Appeal there questioned whether it is compulsory to take reasonable steps. The last point, the Court of Appeal found fault with the point F. Whether it's reasonable. Whether it's compulsory to take reasonable steps before the force majeure clause can be relied on. Right? The court stated that whether this is required in a particular case depends on the precise language of the clause. So take note of these points in your summary. Okay, sometimes force majeure clause can also be an exemption clause. right? As many books say. In which case, you have to pass the, you see the thing keeps sliding down. You know why? Because it's supposed to be two rubber stopper. It broke. Book too heavy. Imagine, too heavy. If you put it all in your head, cannot, man. That's why now they allow you to book. I don't know about next round how they're going to do it. Yeah. Okay, so that's self-induced frustration. Sorry, that's force majeure clause. Now let's look at self-induced frustration. Okay, self-induced frustration will be a situation where one of the parties brought about a frustrating circumstance, right? Leading to frustration. So, would this be treated as frustration? No, it's not. Here again, one party, in fact, created the frustration. Okay, we have one case to this. Maritime National against ocean trawlers. Right? A contract for the charter of a ship for commercial fishing was held not to be frustrated by the charterer's failure to obtain a government license for the ship. It was the charterer's responsibility to obtain the license. The inability to operate the ship was a direct result of the charterer's inadvertence. He was careless, even stupid not to obtain the license, and therefore impossibility of performance was self-induced, caused by his own inadvertence and carelessness in obtaining the license. Knowing very well you need to have a license to fish. It's not like you and me, we can go fishing, go to whichever beach fish, you don't need license. When you do commercial fishing, you have to somehow. Right? Or the other countries' navy will start blasting you. Both people and fish in our waters. Right? Yeah, fish is expensive now, you notice. So this was self-induced frustration. Yeah, you created a frustration situation itself. Okay, now we're going to look at what will be the effect of frustration. Okay? And this effect of frustration is very interesting because, yeah, see the next slide now, sorry. Two rubber stoppers are here. Unfortunately, I don't know why it came off. Somehow does it go on. Okay, now let me give you a pictorial analysis of what I'm talking about. Pictorial diagram of what I'm talking about. Let's say, I hope you all can see. Let's say you have a contract like this. Right? This is the life of a contract. Life of contract. Okay? Let's say there are two parties to this contract, A and B. A is supposed to pay B $1,000 for B to do three things. The three things he must do is X, Y, and Z. Follow American Z, Z. Right? One thing I like Z, they like to call it Z because it's pronounceable. The British Z. Okay? X, Y, and Z. Now, supposed to do three things for $1,000. Right? A is supposed to pay 20% upfront. Right? And the balance 80% at the end. Right? Upfront. Okay? Let's say this is the start of the contract, this is the end of the contract. So far you following? Two parties, A and B. A pay $1,000, B do three things, X, Y, Z. Alright? Conditions, 20% upfront. So at the start he must pay $200. At the end he has to pay $800. Then B got to do three things, X, Y, Z. These three things, hopefully, incrementally, you will realize the benefit as the contract goes on. Now, contract starts, so somewhere around the middle, something happens. F comes about. When you use the word F, everybody thinks vulgar. Vulgar, something comes about. No, you contract frustrated. Right? There's frustration. Now, what happens to frustration is this. The N, E is brought forward to F. Simple as that, right? Frustration happens like that, right? So, at this point, at point F, X, Y, and Z, the three things B has to do, has not been fulfilled. You can only get the benefits after frustration, X, Y, and Z. Now, no benefit yet. So, in other words, A got nothing out of this contract, but he already put $200 in. Following? Now, since the contract is frustrated at F, you can't go on anymore, there's no breach. So A will say, can I have my money back? You follow, it's very logical. A got nothing, gets money back, right? Now, of course, B will say, oh, you get your money. You're lucky I don't ask you for $800. Why you ask me for 800? Oh, the contract says upfront 20%, 80% at the end. Now the end is not an E, it's an F. You pay me 800. You're lucky I don't ask. Honorable man, I don't ask for 800. You want me to pay you 200, you better fly your kite, man. That's what F means, fly your kite. That sounds vulgar. Now there's a quarrel between two of them, A and B, right? Obviously. Right? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at now at this point in time? I'm trying to say that frustration is not so simple, frustrated or not frustrated. Here we have financial effects and consequences. That's why people fight over money. Right? So, who gets what is very important. Who gets what? Well, A gets to get back his 200. B has not completed X, Y, Z, no fulfillment yet, no performance yet. Right? Would that be taken against him? Right? Is A liable to pay the $800 which now has been brought forward to F? These are the questions that we ask about. Isn't it? Now, there was no answer for a long time because the answer was not, it was forthcoming, but it was not very fair. You know why? Under the common law, as we say, common law is sometimes not very good. It's not equitable. Common law rules, remember studying Singapore legal system? Right, we still tend to follow the British a lot. The British had their common law courts. Singapore last time, British colony, the Singapore courts were supposed to apply common law doctrines as well as equitable rules. Right? Now, equity in UK came under a different court. You read when Benny spoke the Chancery Court. So sometimes common law didn't give the right, fair judgment. Now, common law frustration automatically discharges the contract. In other words, future payments will have to pay 800, no need to pay, in my example. But 200 that you have paid remains paid because the parties' rights and losses lie where they fall. It remains paid. You paid already, you can't take back. You have lost it, it lies where it falls, you can't take back. Chandler against Webster tells us that. Right? Chandler against Webster, sadly, is not quoted in Benny's book now. Last edition, I think, last edition or last edition is really. Right? He probably got so cheesed off with the injustice, decided to take it out. Yeah, it doesn't matter, you can go into the internet and look for the case. Now, this case is not important, but it goes to show how stupid, how very stupid the common law courts were. They follow so rigid, the inflexible rules that they had. They sound ridiculous. In other words, it says the loss lie where it falls means the loss lies here. So if you invested 200, you can't take back. It's already done. It's a done deal. Sorry, the risk has transpired. Done deal. Can't take it back. But it's reasonable in the sense that you don't have to pay 800. It doesn't sound reasonable when B says you have to pay me 800. What have you done? You've done nothing. Wow, highway robbery. You know? Huh? Okay, so the other alternative is found under the FCA, Frustrated Contracts Act, because this was found one thing. Okay, now if you look at Benny's book, he did mention about common law. Let me read. Under the common law, frustration automatically discharges the contract, unlike repudiation, which must be accepted before it can discharge the contract. Frustration is effective immediately and requires no communication of advice from one party to the other. The contract is terminated not at initial but only as of the future. Accordingly, all outstanding obligations are no longer required to be performed. Now, common law actually also ruled that any costs, expenses, any costs, expenses, or losses incurred prior to frustrating event must lie where they fall. Meaning that they must be borne by the party which suffers them. You planted your $200, you can't take it back. Too bad. Right? This can cause much hardship. Right? Now, because of this hardship, Singapore Parliament decided, now we always have good government, they always say, okay, fair enough. They are quite fair. They say, look, this is not a pleasing situation. Right? We don't want to be in that situation. So because it's not a very good situation, they decided to pass, Parliament decided to pass this law called the FCA, Frustrated Contracts Act. Now, what does the Frustrated Contracts Act say? Okay, interesting, Now, let's get back to my little example then. FCA tells us, okay, simple example. You all can see it on behind, can, right? If cannot, later can come and take photo. I will print this out. This is pretty good if you want to do revision. It's not foolproof. It's a stupid example, but it's Easy to understand, huh? Yeah. Okay, now, under the FCA, you can see, all future obligations are not required to be performed. So, this $800, you don't have to pay, right? And if XYZ hasn't been fulfilled, you don't have to do either. Both parties, very good. Right, it ends as of the future, right? Back to the future. However, money already paid is recoverable. There's a change there. Remember common law? Cannot, right? Chandler, Webster, you put for 200, you cannot take back. This one, the $200, you can take back. Take back, not bad, man. Take back. Wow, wonderful. Should go for a buffet lunch after that. Okay? All money already paid is recoverable. Okay? Money yet to be paid ceases to be payable. This 800, no need to pay. No change. The common law also says that, right? Now, prior expenses incurred are recoverable. Now, this is where justice comes in. FCA got a lot of justice, huh? You can see the equity of it. So, let's say, B in fact asked A for the 20% upfront because he realized that he is going to do something with a deposit and he's going to get the 200. Let's say this is a F1 situation. You know the F1? Right, he's going to book a room maybe in $1,000. Maybe it's Ritz-Carlton to watch the F1. He asked for 200, you know why not? He's going to decorate the room in a F1 atmosphere, you know? Right? Yeah? The feeling must be right when you go and enter, you hear next to all the Ferraris and the McLarens all drop from the ceiling. Then you have the sound blasting outtakes that remind you of F1. You spend a lot of money, you know, $200, he spent $150 on that. Just to make you, put you in the F1 mood. Right? I'm talking about F1. If I talk about National Day, the minute you step in, no National Day, not that firework. The minute you step into your room in Ritz-Carlton, house already. Right? Yeah, put you in the right mood, you see? He spent 200, he spent 150 doing it. So this will be private expenses, right? Now, is it fair for him to pay you $200 back? No, he can show. He will receive the show. Hey, I mean, you know, so how can I pay you 200? So here's 50 only, less expenses. You follow? Yeah? Okay? Now, prior benefits gained before frustration must be justly compensated. Here we're talking about X, Y, and Z, which is supposed to be X, Y, and Z. Right? Now, let's say X, Y, and Z of the three, one already benefited. X happened somewhere here. In other words, A got the benefit of X already. He cannot just take X and keep quiet, though. He got to pay for the benefit. You got to quantify how much the value of X is. So this will be prior benefits gained before frustration must be justly compensated. Are you seeing the picture? So these 5 points make sense, you know, because you look at it, it really spreads the loss evenly and quite fairly. Yeah, but the sad part about frustration is that it spreads the loss. Everybody loses. It's a lose-lose situation. Nobody gains. Last time, somebody gains a little bit and somebody else expands, but he also loses ultimately. So frustration is not a good situation. Both parties lose. Okay? So this is what happens. Now, let's look at the next slide that tells you the FCA doesn't apply to certain contracts. Okay, FCA does not apply to the following types of contracts. All right. You can find this on page 201 of Benny's book. The last paragraph on that page, right? Pursuant to section 3, subsection 5 of the FCA. You have to be precise, this is the one, 3 subpoint 5, The provision of the legislation applies to all contracts other than the following. Can you see A to E, right? Okay, anyway, I've summarized it. Charter parties and contracts of carriage of goods by sea. Shipping-related contracts are not covered, right? Because shipping-related contracts have got force majeure clauses which are much more complicated and precise than what the FCA can give. So we would prefer to go there, right? Insurance contracts are not covered by FCA. In fact, frustration situation to Now, remember I told you frustration, nobody wins, everybody loses. The loss is fairly spread. Now, in fact, insurance is the way to benefit the parties. When I say benefit, means it's a risk management device to actually compensate them for the losses. So most people like don't show, conferencing and all that don't show, they buy insurance to cover for it. Yeah? Okay. So insurance contracts surely FCA don't cover, right? Contracts for the sale of perishable goods. These are goods easily perishable, frozen food stuff and things like that. If you have contracts to deal with that, obviously you want to have force majeure clauses and more precise. Yeah? Lastly, of course, contracts with force majeure clauses. These two. In fact, force majeure could be everywhere. Right? Force majeure is even in shipping contracts, which are more precise and more specific to that kind of law. So that's what it is. Right. Okay. Shall we take a short break? Yeah, let's go for a little short break.